Here we are again live. Welcome to another episode of the Be Awesome at Facility Management podcast. I've got the summertime co-host that is permanent, making it every time, Mr. Paul Anastasi. Where are you today?
Today, I've been banished to the attic. I had to give up the first floor for the grandchildren, so I'll apologize in advance for any background noise.
No
and I'm
beach
back
house.
in Watertown. I know what you meant now. I'm back in Watertown.
Back in the attic. Welcome back to the attic. And really fortunate today to have an in-person guest. I am in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. I am in one of the most impressive conference rooms. I think this is pretty powerful with a longtime friend and facility professional, Mr. John Stangler. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we're going to talk about a couple of things. One of the things to start off with is that I really want to focus this episode on is the importance of associations, the importance of your network in this profession. And as luck would have it, I had no idea when I asked John to join us on Friday of last week. He received an award last night. So tell us a little bit about WSSCA, because I didn't even know about this stuff. And then kind of what it is, what it does, and what you got.
All right. So WSSCA is the Wisconsin Association. All right. Sorry. There's two different organizations I'll talk about. Wisconsin School Safety Coordinators Association is the WSSCA, and WASBO is the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials. WSSCA primarily takes care of the safety and security professionals for the state, providing valuable professional development. We actually had Dr. CJ Huff from Joppa, Missouri, as our keynote speaker at the WSSCA conference yesterday. And then also I was able to be lucky enough to receive an award, being the 2022 School Safety Coordinator of the Year for the state of Wisconsin. So I'm honored and, thrilled that I was able to achieve that award, but it is honestly a complete team effort because I can't do it alone without my team. And, I'm very fortunate to have a great support staff and support team within my district, from the Board of Education to my superintendent, to my assistant superintendent, CFO, to my safety committee, my administrative team, and, staff that we have in our district and the community, because safety is everyone's responsibility. It's not just my job as a school safety coordinator. It is really everyone's responsibility, and it's a complete team approach. I mean, we have to all be on the same page in order to achieve and have a safe school district for children to learn and for us to reside in.
That's interesting, because one of the things we did a session on cybersecurity last Friday that was really well received. I was amazed at the interest, and then the kind of the aha moments that Paul and I had. Paul and I talked about this in an earlier episode too, which is the role of a facility professional in education has mushroomed to from a handful or a couple handfuls of responsibilities to this wild long laundry list. Is school security, safety typically in line with a facility? Does that happen with facility directors across the state? Is there a size?
I think it kind of depends upon the size of the district. For some of the smaller districts, we have people that are wearing multiple hats. For larger districts, they have their own designated school safety coordinator. Especially, I don't know, maybe it's over, maybe for over 1 million square feet of buildings within a district, you probably have your own designated school safety coordinator. Especially the larger districts that are designated just to safety, and then the facility person is separate. But for the small districts like me, we're wearing many hats. So I am the director of buildings and grounds. I'm a safety coordinator. I'm also the energy manager. So it kind of, the position has evolved where, you only took care of, say, safety, and now you have the whole security aspect to it. So, even with WSSCA, there's safety and security tracks that they have for training, just because we're dealing with so much. Also, you talked about cyber training. Well, having a whole digital threat assessment. So from a safety standpoint, we have office school safety, and for all students, sometimes there's the opportunity where we need to provide a threat assessment on a student, and we like to coordinate a care assessment, because really it's, making sure that we get every kid, the opportunity to be successful in their district.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about safety, do you do if a teacher fell off a chair hanging a picture, do they call you and you have to
Yeah,
do a report on, and then the kids crossing the street to get to the bus? Is that all part of your?
It's all underneath my umbrella. So
Wow.
workers' comp, yes, that would be underneath my umbrella. So technically, I'm a certified school risk manager, CSRM as well. So yeah, we deal with the workers' comp, our mod. Knowing what our mod is, knowing what we can do to reduce it and prevent workplace injuries. Yep, crossing guard. Heck, sometimes I'm filling in and I'm the crossing guard.
Wow.
Someone's out, so it's kind of that all our duties as assigned at times. But anything regarding safety, from cameras to door access to card readers to you name it, anything safety related that falls underneath my umbrella. And yes, I mean, like I said before, it's having a great team. So like I can't do it all myself. I need custodians to report issues to me. I need staff members to report issues to me. Yep. Same thing. If we have a troubled kid where they need a little help, it needs to be communicated to the counselors, the school counselors in their building. So, I mean, really, it's all things safety, because it really has to be a holistic approach, because it's not just one thing. It's everything safety related and security related, within our district.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, because if that teacher falls off the chair and wipes out the thermostat in the wall, you can fix that too.
We can, but they shouldn't be using chairs. So the nice thing is,
I get it.
if we recommend them use ladders.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is, they make sure they don't do that in front of me, because I will kind of call them out on it. But at the same point, we want it to be a safe and welcoming environment for all of our staff members. We don't want any single one of them to get injured. We want them to go home in the same condition that they arrived in. And it's the same thing with, we have to deal with a little bit more up here than other states, as we're doing with the slip, strips, and falls with the ice and the snow. So, constantly, from snow to fall protection to making sure that we're clearing the snow in a timely manner, and making sure it's accessible, making sure the entrances are accessible. I mean, that's all with it underneath that safety umbrella.
Wow.
Many
hats, we say, right? Many hats, Josh.
Well, I'm writing this stuff down, and I'm just trying to think. The first time I met John was probably 12 years ago. So you've been in the industry for a while.
Yep.
When you got into it, did you have all these hats, or have these hats been added to your rack?
Well, it's been added over time. So in my prior district, I was there as the operations supervisor for about 5 years. And then I've been in my current position for technically 10 years as of yesterday. So, you started out as the director of buildings and grounds, and you're naturally the safety coordinator for a small district like me. And really it's learning over time. Did I know everything up front? Do I still know everything? No. But, it's that willingness to learn, willingness to adapt and change, and willingness just to continue, that's a continuous improvement model where I'm always looking to get better. I'm always looking at trying to make our school district safer, more efficient, you name it, from energy management to facility management to the way we're cleaning rooms to the, cleanable square footage. We're always trying to find efficiencies to be more effective at our job. So really, over time, it's growing, learning, and and networking too, because I learn a lot from other people, like Josh, where it's you have to continue to look for ways to succeed and prepare yourself for the future. Now that I've been in the industry 15 years, do I know a few more things? Yes. Do I know everything? No, but I'm still the key is being willing to learn. Because some people like to get stuck in ruts and don't want to change. And you know what? You have to listen to everyone. You have to listen to your staff. You have to listen to the students, because it's evolving. So, you talk about even the digital threats that's evolved over time. We don't have nearly as many, graffiti or bathroom written threats anymore. A lot of times we're finding them online. There's digital threats that we have to deal with. So it just like that's one of the best examples of probably how it's evolved, but we just have to continue to evolve with it.
Yeah. When I started here in Watertown, in my hometown, 1993. And I was handed this big ring of keys and a pager. We're talking before the cell phone days.
Yeah.
So I had a pager, and it didn't even have the digital printout on the top. It toned off. So when my pager went off, this is what I had to do. First I called my administrative assistant, She was a secretary back then. I called my secretary and I said, "Did you page me?" She said, "No." I'd hang up the phone. I'd call the high school office. I said, "Someone at the high school looking for me?" No. I'd hang up the phone. I'd call the middle school. "Anyone there looking for me?" Work my way through the 5 school buildings first, and then call my HVAC tech. "Are you looking for me?" No. Until I found the person that was paging me. And then here we are, everything's on the phone now. It's instant. How far we've come.
Yeah.
Well, you got a crystal ball. This is for either of you guys. And is there a role that you see the facility professional in a small to medium sized district that is coming down? Like you see, staffing is so hard. Leadership is even harder in organizations, especially in education. Do you see an uptick in facility directors also overseeing food services, or are there other places? Paul, when you started, when we talked 2 weeks ago, we talked about how you were the transportation coordinator as well as a facility director. Is there a hat that hasn't been on a facility director's rack yet? And if there is, what is that? What's that next thing that you're going to have as a kind of a new responsibility?
My boss just above me, the operations manager in Newton, he oversaw custodians, maintenance, food service, and all the rental of the school properties, like all the after hours use.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was like renting out gyms and he was a rental manager as well.
That's a full-time job in itself.
Yeah. I mean, he did all of that. And transportation, that was a tough one. That's not an easy job. Anyone that does busing and bus stops and distance from the school and charging people and don't charge. I mean, I had one guy so upset because his neighbor was free and he clicked over that 1.5 mile radius in Massachusetts. That's what it is. And he had to pay if he wanted his kid on the bus, but the kid right next door was going free. So it's one of those really, really tough. The bus drivers are driving too fast. They're stopping too fast. I mean, you hear it all. They missed a stop. They came late. They came early. It's a problem if they come early too, because the kids aren't out there. They come early and then they leave. Transportation was really, really tough.
Well, and I think part of it is, trying to be, a jack of all trades. We might not be a master of any single one of those, but if we have one of those backgrounds that we're, a master of trade in that, it's definitely going to help us. I think you can only, carry so many hats at a time, because I think ultimately you're going to lose effectiveness if you're spreading yourself way too thin.
Especially if you're a crossing guard.
Especially if you're a crossing guard, but because that takes a physical toll on the body as well. And especially like up in the upper Midwest, well, you're dealing with the extreme cold some days. So I think you have to try and be as versatile as you possibly can. You have to kind of know when or what you're capable of handling, but then also knowing when it's too much.
Yeah.
I think we have to be, kind of self-reflective on that, but then also we need to be as effective as we can at delegating. So again, like I was saying before, it's a team effort, because without having the ability to delegate, I'm gonna burn myself out. So I have to be able to delegate some of those responsibilities to other people that, I know they're going to do a good job. Are they going to do it exactly how I do it? No, but that's okay. Because we need to help coach them. We need to help train them. And, and that's just an ongoing effort where we need to keep training the next people to be effective at their jobs. I mean, we can't take it all on. I mean, we have to be able to delegate, and I think we have to be versatile where we can be, and where it makes sense. But if you're in some of those larger districts, there's just no way you're going to burn yourself out way too fast if you're trying to take on too much responsibility at any given time.
Yeah. When I was in Newton, I supervised custodians across 23 schools, and there was a certain school committee member that said you should be in every building at least 3 times a week. I can't do that. I mean, it's 60 miles from one side of the town to the other, and
Yep.
I wouldn't do anything else if
Mhm.
that was my mission, to be in all those buildings that much. I mean, I had to depend on my senior custodians in each building. They took on a big role of being my eyes and ears in the building, and you go to the buildings with need that day. You do make your regular rounds so that you go through all the buildings, but you could never do it on a set schedule, that many times. It would just be crazy.
You're talking about 14, 15 site visits a day, if
Yeah.
you do it 5 days a week. I mean,
that's
you
crazy.
get people that have a hard enough time getting to 2 site visits. That's just not even possible. Let's shift gears a little bit, because why I'm here is I'm in Wisconsin for another conference, which I think is really slick. That it's fairly unique in the country, where 2 complementary associations. So one was school safety and security, knowing that some of their audience are facility directors, and WASBO, which is the Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials, which is really the go-to for most all of the business officials, operations managers, transportation directors, food services. Everyone operationally in Wisconsin looks to WASBO for support, professional development, certifications, all this stuff. They marry the 2 events. They're separate, but they go back to back. So WSSCA, where John got his award last night, they were Sunday, Monday, and then the WASBO facility conference that I'm at is Tuesday, Wednesday. And one of the reasons why I want to have you on this was, you're in there with Paul, and how I see what you give. Like, you're at all these events and you're giving in a couple of different ways. One, you're taking a lot in, like you're making sure, like getting you to come to this, we had to squeeze out time so that you didn't miss any of the courses that you want to see. But you're in the vendor hall, you're talking to all the companies, whether you do business with them or not, trying to learn, all the new widgets and gadgets, everything. And so, one of the things that I always think is admirable is giving back, but also taking back. And you do that very well. And so I wanted to talk about, your thoughts on, one, the importance of professional development, getting involved. And then maybe, I don't remember you. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, I'm trying to remember, like, the first time I met you, which is probably 2008, maybe 2009. One of the first times I came up here. I think you're a much different person now than you were then. Because, and I was new when I came out here in 2008, 2009, but I don't think you were the guy up on stage interviewing an NFL player. So talk about a little bit of, like, kind of that journey from the new guy or new girl coming on to an association, coming to an event, getting comfortable, to who you are today. And then I'd love to understand why, because you never say no to anything. You're on every committee that someone asks you to be on. And I know it takes you outside of your normal, you're not doing this during normal work hours. You're doing your day job and you're committing to this. So tell me a little bit about that.
I think, coming in as the young gun, I was, mid-20s when I started in my prior district. And I think part of it was just to growing and learning, because I think that professional development is critical. In order for us to be effective, or as highly effective as we can be at our job, we have to continue to learn and adapt and know what's going on. One, we have to know what's going on with the vendors. We have to gain those connections. Those personal relationships are critical. And that goes to a couple of movies where really it is all about building those personal relationships. If you don't have those personal relationships, it's very difficult to get things accomplished with vendors. But then also it's so much easier to get it completed because you've built that relationship over time where, all right, I've learned about the product, I know about the product, and I know everything about the product. And then, yes, I'm very willing to, partake, or, hey, you know what, somewhere along my career, I'm going to have to, look at adding turf, or I'm going to have to look at changing out my lighting, or I'm going to have, so I look at building all those personal relationships with all those vendors where, they learn from me as much as I learn from them at times, where, what we're trying to be as effective as we possibly can with our job. So we need that professional development to continue to grow and evolve. And I'd say, from a district standpoint, my district wants me to be as effective as possible within my job. So enabling me to attend these professional development opportunities is critical. I look at some districts that are not supporting the professional development, and I can't understand why not. I mean, it's so helpful. And, I've been fortunate to have a couple of operations supervisors gained had jobs in the last couple of years, and really it's training the next batch. We're going to continue to see people jumping out of the industry and or retiring. And through attrition, we're going to have to replace those people. And these positions are critical to fill, where we need someone versatile, guy or girl, that can, take care of all these issues in a school district. So I've kind of taken upon myself to train the next batch. So having been in that position, I certainly appreciated anything I could learn from some of those veterans at the time that helped me be more effective at my job. And then over time, it's evolved to the point where now I'm training the next batch of people to be effective at their job. And yep, I'm doing a lot more speaking. 2011, 2012 is one of my first presentations where, I had a little note cards to make sure I mentioned anything, I want to make sure I made this point during my presentation. Well, now over time, I've been able to gain a lot of experience, gain a lot of knowledge, I think is critical, where now I can pretty much talk on any of those certification sessions. You can put the slide up and I'm like, oh, I got a story for this. I got a story for that. Here's one of my big takeaways from this, where, I wish I would have known this when I was younger, or less experience in my job at that time, where, hey, it'll help me out. So the best part is a lot of, this profession, they either have gone through it and they're teaching you, or you're going to learn it before you have to deal with it. Because over time you're going to deal with a whole gamut of everything from staffing to, facility management to safety, where, we can learn from each other, because either they're coming or going, where, we can help each other learn, and we can educate each other in order to, be our most effective selves in our position.
And I think one of the important things there that I heard was not closing the door on something that might be in the future, a training or I remember as a young student at Wentworth, studying building construction, and I failed computer science, and I had to take it over. And I'm like, being the 19, 20 years old, it's like, computers, when will I ever use a computer in construction? Why do I have to take that course? Yeah. Look at it now.
Well, and even with our operations supervisors, I want them to leave us in a better position than they found it. So like that should be a goal for any position. They leave it in a better place than they found it, and they did the best they could with what they had, with whatever resources they had at their disposal. Because it really, we have to be preparing for the future. And same thing, we're trying to attract students. So the more effective and the more inviting of an environment I can create in my district, well, that's going to help every single person learn. And then, hey, even my kids, they're going to the same schools where I'm at, where I'm like, I feel completely confident sending them there, because I am in total support, and we're all on the same page of what our mission is.
Right. So important. Just for the record, one of the other courses I said that about was calculus, and I never used it since I left there. So I was batting 500 on those two.
I never took it, so I'm not missing anything. No, I wrote down confidence and experience, which are two traits that new people getting into the profession, it's tough for them to have confidence because they don't have the experience. They have the intelligence, and this is where I love the mentor-mentee ideas that I share with people, which is, historically, mentorship programs have been the elder, the statesman or whatever they were called, where they would have the young person and they would mentor them, and it was they educated them because of experience and because they were more intelligent. The young professionals coming into the workforce, whatever that role is, they're more intelligent than their bosses 9 times out of 10 if they were born with a smartphone as the device that their parents were using, just because they have that access to that content. And so I think this is a very interesting time where experienced people like you and like Paul and a little bit like me, with that confidence, is we have to retool how we're showing and training, and providing this professional development, and how do we show the importance of, let's say you're 22 today, right? 22, 23, coming into the scene, making sure that we show the value of coming here opposed to staying in your office and watching a YouTube video. That's like the $1 million question, right?
Yep.
Is getting the interest and the importance of understanding how that relationship and how coming here with your peers face to face for 2 days is vitally important to the success and the difference that it makes. I think you touched on it, which is I don't know how schools that don't invest in professional development for their staff, that's all staff. So we're going to talk about custodial. Everybody deserves professional development, and people that go out to events like this, if they're not bringing back takeaways for their entire team, like don't be selfish. Like great, you got a book full of notes, but if you don't have a book full of notes that you can give to every staff member, then you got to rethink about why you're going and how you're going. At least give something back that says, hey, I went here for 2 days. Thanks for taking care of business. Here's what I learned about, like I spent 15 minutes talking to one of the autonomous floor scrubber sales reps. Like if I was a director of facilities, I'd go back and I'd want to get my custodial team to get involved. I don't want to come back and say, hey, I bought four of these autonomous scrubbers, because the first thing they're going to come back with is, that's my job. Right. What I want to come back with is all this information and say, here's what I looked at. Here are some of the pluses and minuses. Let's sit down and go over this. And it's kind of like having that involvement, even so much as buying a new broom. You know, your custodian should have an involvement in the decision making of why and what we're buying, opposed to here's a broom, now go push it.
What's easier to accomplish if you have that buy-in? If you have the stakeholder buy-in, well, anything is more, easily to be accomplished if you have the buy-in. But yeah, if you don't have the buy-in and you just do it, well, you got to be willing to share too. Because I mean, all right, I'm not sitting here holding all the best strategies. I'm like, no, I've learned a lot of strategies over time. And you know what? Sometimes it may be the most effective way. And sometimes, you know what? Someone might have to figure it out on their own too. We can't teach them everything. And you got to be willing to learn too. Because I think sometimes, they always say some of the older people or more experienced people aren't willing to learn as much anymore. And you know what? You have to have that willingness to learn. Because if we don't have the willingness to learn, well, how are we going to get better at what we do and be attracting students and staff and, community members to our district?
I like to refer us as seasoned
veterans. When I was in Newton, I formed a supply committee of union custodians. I had 5 union custodians, and when I was going to buy a new piece of equipment for whatever reason, I would bring them together for the demo and bounce it off of them. Tell me what's good about it, what's bad about it. We had like a little report card, and because they're going to be the ones that use it. I'm not going to sit on the floor scrubber and ride it around all day. So I want them to get what they want so that they'll use it. I mean, right down to mops, like you said, you want to push microfiber, but that was a tough sell 10 years ago when I was trying to tell the guys that microfiber was the way to go. And I tried different microfiber mops, from the one that flops up and the one that you just change the pad and you charge the system in a double bucket and all of that. But I went to that that supply committee, and we went through the products before we bought them. Because I was, when I bought a floor scrubber, I bought 10 floor scrubbers, for the larger schools that I had. So it was a significant investment, and I didn't want to buy it for them to put it in the closet and leave it there.
That's something you created, Paul?
Yeah. I created it in Newton. I'm sure someone else has done it, but
you started it. Do you remember was that something from a previous life that you were like, where did you come up with that? Because that's a rarity. Like, I don't think that there's, for lack of a better word, you call it supply committee, call it whatever you want. I don't hear that as often as I would like to, that there's something like that in place.
Well, in the city of Newton where I worked, they were big into committees. They would form a committee to help form a committee. So there was different titles and different committees. And we talked about, my boss and I said, what are we going to do? These guys don't like this or they don't like that. And it was like, why are you forcing it when I first got there? Why are we as the administration forcing it on them? Let's see what they want. So it was just something that came from a conversation with my boss. And he was very open he wanted to be on the cutting edge, and he was open to, let's see what works with the guys. Let's get them involved in it. It really was from him mentoring me.
Am I missing the mark? Is this something that everybody does in every school, or is that something that's fairly?
I think a good portion of them do.
They just don't talk about it.
Well, it just doesn't get highlighted as much, but
Yeah.
you want that buy-in. You want them to be comfortable with the products they're using.
Mhm.
And sometimes you kind of have to set it up so they kind of figure it out on their own as well. I mean, you can't, it's like anything. You can't force everything on everybody.
Right.
I mean, you really can't. You need that buy-in. Otherwise they're not going to be willing to use the product or use they need to see the results of why. It goes back to the why. I'm like, if they don't understand the why, well, then it's difficult for anything to get accomplished for that matter. But if they understand the why of like, hey, we're trying to be more efficient, or hey, this is going to save you X amount of time so you can focus on another area. It's really just it's catering to your staff and keeping them happy, because with the staffing the way it is in most places where and like any business for that matter, it's always cheaper to keep a customer than it is to acquire a new one.
Right.
That's like such an amazing statement, and so many companies just fail to understand that. It's like a new client acquisition, new money, if you will, new revenue, and it's like how hard is it? It's so much harder to get a new client than to keep one, and so many companies just fail at that miserably. So I love that statement. So I think we got a lot of stuff covered here. The market is extremely thin for people like you and Paul, and you're we'll say, doing fast math on when you started and when I met you and everything else. You're still in the young middle range. You're past young and getting started, but you're not quite seasoned like Paul and I. Paul, you're a little more seasoned than me, even though I've got more salt, and I got a lot more salt than pepper in my beard right now. But what are some? I guess I guess this is for both of you. Is like, what how do we get? And this isn't an easy answer, but how do we get young people fresh out of school or have gone out and gotten some experience? How do we get them to be interested and understand how powerful the role that they have? I was having lunch with a couple of people, a facility director, and I'm drawing a blank on the district. But he put in a significant number of years outside of education. And he said, I'm new to the district. I've been there a year and a half. And I looked at him and I said, do you live in the community that you work in? He said, yes. And I said, I bet you have kids in the community you work in. He said, yes. And you could see that he had passion in the district. You could see that he really didn't know what he was buying into as far as what he was going into for a career. And he's learning a lot of new, interesting things. But that's why he did it. And I think that's why a lot of others do it. But I think we have to tap into the new workforce. How do we get them? How do we show them how awesome the work that you guys do is? Because Paul, you said it, the opening of the high school, you weren't there. You went back to your office. You made sure that everything was shiny and clean. All the lights were on. All the air was working. The camera wasn't on Paul Anastasia or his team and all the work that was done leading up to that. It was the ribbon cutting of all of the excellence of the work that you did. But how do we capture that? Because I'm hearing it all over the place. People are retiring at an alarming rate across the board. People are resigning and going somewhere else. Where do we get these people, and how do we show them how awesome this work is?
So we're finding that that's happening nationwide. Is that what you're? I don't know.
We're here. It's everywhere. It's becoming everywhere. It's not pockets anymore. It's not, hey, in South Dakota we don't have enough custodians because there's not enough people. It's everywhere seems to be having the same challenges or struggles, and there's not a lot of the younger 20 somethings that are coming into the profession that I'm seeing at the rate that they need to. From the number of people that are retiring or leaving early.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of it, I've jotted down some notes here, which I think are huge, where we obviously need to market ourselves. We need to recruit. We need to really focus on retainment, keeping the best and brightest. And that goes for our teaching staff as well, where we need to try and retain as many as we possibly can. You know what? If we recruit and market ourselves effectively enough, we're going to get some of the best and brightest from other districts. And it's not necessarily that we're trying to steal it. It's just a matter of we're trying to create, an environment where they're valued, they're appreciated, their opinion matters. Hey, you know what? This is a place I want to send my kid. Perfect. Like, we want them to be appreciated and use that passion, which is another key word, where they want to be passionate. And really, it could sound to, they just want to be somewhere where they're appreciated and liked and loved. And you know what? If they can find all those in any workplace, obviously people are going to be more than willing to, hey, you know what? I'll move my kids, or we'll move into that district just to be a part of it if it's that great. So really, we got to attract, we have to be, very strategic on how we market ourselves and what we offer. So for some people, hey, you know what? Our district might not be the best suit for them, but you know what? We're going to try and get as many people as we can that want to be a part of our team or a part of our district, just because of what we offer, regardless of, say, graduation rate or future ready. I mean, we want to make sure there's future ready as possible going forward.
Yeah, I think you sparked my brain when you said marketing, because the number one reason why people move to Anytown, USA, is not the police department, it's not the fire department. While good, it's the education. Because typically, if you're in a community that has a good public education system, whether you have kids or not, you have a fairly safe bet that you're going to make a good investment in your real estate property. If you do simple searches on real estate, it always comes up with the school. The bottom of every Zillow listing is, the school ratings. The reason why Paul buys the house that he bought, the beach house that he bought, probably had something to do with the schools and the value, not just the beach and the water. But I think the way that we have marketed schools for so long has been based on the education. And I think it's so much more than that, which is, in certain parts of the country, Alaska, for one, they actually have funerals in their schools. And I think we got to remember that the fabric of the community, a lot of the fabric of the community lies in those school buildings and all the work that you do. Paul talked about, the after hours events, like the schools are open all the time. And I think marketing more of that would be really beneficial. That I don't see a lot of that would be, hey, I get to be a part of this. So
yeah, we're community centers at night. I mean, it's amazing how much time, they spend in the school compared to how much time they spend at home with their parents.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing how, and then the best part for us is how much value can we give them when they're there? I mean, really, it's about building that value and, making them a part and giving them as many opportunities as they can to be successful. And if we can honestly say we've done that, you know what? It's for each and every child. I mean, it really is. It's for the kids. So, a lot of times with our mindset of what we're doing, it's for the kids. It's for their future.
It's for the kids.
And we kind of have to eliminate the me, I mentality, where it's like, no, it's we, it's us. Let's do this together, because if you have that team effort, it makes everything more, more accomplishable.
How many times have we said that, Josh? It's for the kids, right?
I mean, I think that's going to be. I mean, maybe we should change the name of this podcast. It's for the kids. I mean, we've definitely said it a number of times, but I think I don't think you can say that enough. I don't think that we can talk about some of these things enough, because.
And you've said it more than once that it's for some kids, that's the safest, warmest, best place of their day.
Maybe the only place they are able to get a full meal. I mean, you're right though. And you know what? Even if it's just one person that has an effect on them, to grow those personal relationships. Hey, you know what? They might be best friends with the custodian. They might be best friends with the, one of the food service, individuals. I mean, you think about just the connections that they can build and just how many people can have a lasting impact on them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was walking the vendor area, and one of the companies, this woman said, "Excuse me, I can't help but look at your pants." And I was like, "Okay, well that's something." And so I for full disclosure, I have to show my pants. They have the Be Awesome logo all over them, and they're embroidered like 45 times, and so they obviously stand out. They're the trans pants.
It sticks out.
Yeah, they're the trans pants that make people remember to be awesome.
She obviously couldn't see your socks.
Well, yeah, no, my Cheez-It socks. No, well, I'm in Wisconsin, wear Cheez-It socks. But she said, what, tell me a little bit why you're wearing these pants and what's be awesome. And so I told her, and then I talked about exactly the reason why I have the passion that I do, specifically in the maintenance and operations field, which is, this is something I'm going to talk about 100, plus times, which is, when I met Santa Claus in 2018 and had him on my podcast from North Pole, Alaska, and found out that there's 3 million homeless and kids in foster care in the United States, which translates to like an 82% chance that there's one child that is wildly underserved that is in a classroom, in every single classroom in the United States. And so, their education, their learning, that's not something we can fix for everybody, but the environment that they're learning, eating, and feeling comfortable in, and most importantly, giving them hope, that's what matters. That's where we can make that lasting impact. I was a terrible student. I talk about being, 5 years in high school. I was an awful student. And I've made something relatively positive with my life. And it wasn't because I passed trigonometry or calculus, because I didn't take either of those things. I barely got out of Saxon 75. But that's important. And I think that how we message that and how we show that these roles that you and your teams carry is valuable and viable. And I mean, you talk about safety and security and the level that you do that at in a world where, active shooters it's regular. Like, I can't remember my 13 years of public school that I experienced anything. And then Columbine happened. And then all of a sudden, Sandy Hook, and then Parkland, and then all of a sudden just open up the floodgates, and it's happening almost, it seems like weekly in some cases.
Yeah.
And a lot of it we don't hear about. And so to be able to be a part of that, to help provide the best safe environment, that's pretty powerful.
We need to have that personal connection with every single kid. Each and every child, we need to have that, the personal connection with, in order to maintain a safe and secure environment.
And isn't it great when you realize that Josh, like you said, you got to that point and wow, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can make a positive. 3 years ago, my oldest boy, Mike, was coaching his son's Little League team with a friend of his, Coach B, we called him. And these two growing up were a pain in my backside. They were quite a pair when they were on the street. And I said to them 3 years ago, I said, 10 years ago, if someone told me that you two chuckleheads would be impacting the youth of Watertown in a positive way, I would have told them they were crazy. And the two of them just kind of looked at each other and said, wow, yeah, that's right. And they realized that, they're volunteering their time to do Little League, to do things that a lot of parents don't have time to do. And there was 20 kids on that team that were positively affected by what they were doing. Well, that's pretty cool.
They did an awards for custodian of the year, and because Wisconsin's a pretty big state, they had regional, north, northeast, northwest, southeast.
We can talk a little bit about that if you would like.
Yeah.
So there's regional. So we ended up giving out 4 awards, and the reason being is there's so many great things happening in our schools with our custodial staff and maintenance staff that they need to be recognized. Because I mean, we got to a point, I think the first year we're like, oh, we're going to give out 1. We're like, why are we only giving out 1? There's and then we get all the nominations, and we were kind of overwhelmed with how many great things are happening. We're like, how are we going to decide between some of these? And, we're trying to only pick 4 for each of the regionals. And I'm just like, this is tough. And then, even today we had to emphasize if you nominated them in the past, please nominate them again, because there's so many deserving individuals, and there's so many great things happening in schools that just go unnoticed, where we really need to focus and highlight them more often.
Yeah. It was pretty powerful. I mean, they had, what they did was they did videos of staff members talking about the custodian receiving the award. And then they asked the custodian to do a video, out of comfort. And one of them couldn't make it, but one of them in particular, struck a chord with me, because especially when we're talking about that impact, here's a custodian, been there for 30 years. And there was some comment like, if a child was not having a good day, he could tell, and he would he would stop what he was doing and give that child a couple minutes of their time. And that's one of those things that you go, wow, like a custodian does this. And it's like, I think back and I go, yeah, that I can remember custodians doing that. I can remember them taking that time where it took outside their normal workload, and they were a kid's therapist, and the kids were comfortable talking to them and sharing that with them. And that's huge. I mean, I talk about, the one time that I had the third shift custodian I did a professional development for custodians in a school, and the third shift guys stuck around, and and it was in the morning, so that the facility director figured that they weren't going to leave, they weren't going to stick around. I make the joke that typically third shift anything typically aren't people, because that's when the majority of people are asleep, but especially custodians, right? Their equipment doesn't talk back, and there's nobody in the halls. And so the perception is that they might be a little bit difficult. And I just asked a very simple question. Why do you do what you do? Why do you do the job that you do every day? And don't tell me it's because of the money. Don't tell me it's because of the fame. But you get up every day. Don't tell me you have to, because you get to make a choice in your day. You get to make a choice of what you want to do and what you want to be. And you've chosen this job. And one of the third shift custodians got up and he said, raised his hand first, and he immediately had a tear in his eye. And he said, I've been here for over 20 years. And the greatest reward for me is that in my career of 20 years, 2 students, when they were graduating, came to me and said, thank you. Done. But nobody ever asked that person that. Nobody asked him why. Nobody asked him what made him tick every day. And every day he got up and went to work on the third shift to make sure that school was clean and healthy and safe for the students, because of 2 kids that took the time to say thank you. And I think that's important for all of us to do, is to make sure we're saying thank you more, especially to the people that are taking care of our spaces every day.
Well, and also appreciate what we're able to do, because we get to do it. It's not that I got to do this.
Yeah.
Like, no, I get to be part of something special.
Right.
I get to help out a kid. I get to have a lasting impact on someone.
Yeah.
I get to make this, school a safe environment for everyone to learn. I get, you just think about the awesome things we get to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's phenomenal how much we get to do.
Yep. And if you're there long enough and you see them as little kindergartners, first graders, and then you see them at graduation, it's like, wow, that's something. That's
well,
really
you do a 30-year career at a district. I was doing the math with someone at lunch again today, and I said, you start your job today and you put 30 years in. You're with that child, the class, the kindergarten class through 12th grade, and when you retire, they're going to be halfway through their career. So you can see what the result of your hard work and your growth is. That's visible, especially when you're close to your community. That's visible. That's results. That's, I reached out to my high school principal to thank him a couple of years ago, because I never thanked him, and he was one of the few people that believed in me. I reached out to my science chemistry teacher. I found one of my tests from 1991 where, instead of an answer of periodic with a combination of periodic elements, nonetheless, instead of drawing the diagram of how it all looked, I drew a picture of a person under a safety shower that's saying I'm burning, laying on the ground, and then a picture of me waving that says I love science or I love chemistry. And I made it awesome. I made it into a card.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. I made it into a card and I sent it to her for her retirement. And she said, I always believed in you. You just didn't, you didn't believe in yourself yet, but I believed in you. I knew you were going to do something. You're just a little late in the game to figure it out. But that's something you get to see, is that result. That's really powerful. And to be a part of it, the reward is huge. So now this is good stuff. No, I think this is good. I think we got to wrap up, because we have a 4:20. Yeah. We got a 4:30, I think, was the deadline that I gave us for getting back on track. But I want to touch on one more thing. But I know the people that have watched and listened to our first 4 episodes, I open up with a story of people doing awesome. But I wanted John to share some of his story, because that's who I want to celebrate this week. As I was making my way here, I saw that he received this award, and that's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, there are how many school districts in the state?
423.
423 school districts in the state of Wisconsin. They're all doing great stuff. And for John and his team to be recognized for being the safety in school. What was the title of it?
School Safety Coordinator of the Year.
School Safety Coordinator of the Year. And him giving all the credit to his team, which I know that's much deserved for his team. I just want to say thank you and congratulations on your award and the great work that you do and you continue to do. And it's been an honor for me to watch you grow. You're a little bit younger than me, so I can say you're elder, but to watch you grow from when you started to seeing what you're doing now and your output for not just your direct community, but the state. And I predict you're going to be doing stuff probably for the nation and the globe before you're all done with this, because you got it. Yeah, I know you got it. So thank you for that. And
thank you.
Little factoid I found out about today.
All right.
This is interesting.
I know, it's like
this is interesting. So he's interviewing this NFL player today. I found out something interesting that I'm curious about, because you're a statistician for sports.
Yep. Yeah. So it started out when I worked in the NFL. So I worked for an NFL team for a couple of years. My major was sports management, and I ended up with a master's in sport administration. Got in with the NFL, working in operations and public relations, and I'd also work in the press box. So I worked in the press box for 4 or 5 seasons, doing post-game interviews, and also occasionally doing stats for national networks, whether it be Fox, CBS, and then like Wested One, Sports USA. So I ended up doing stats for a bunch of networks and started to get my foot in the door with more of the companies. And then I think I've been doing it for 13, 14 years now. I've been doing stats and or spotting. So for the broadcasters, they're really good, but it's the spotter that's helping out as an extra set of eyes. And also typically between the color commentator and the play-by-play person, there is a statistician. So they're feeding them the stats, everything happening during the game, the outcome of every single play, 100 yards rushing, 300 yards passing, milestone stats, career stats, you name it, all that stuff. The statistician is feeding the broadcasters that during the game. So for a number of years, I was working anywhere from say 8 to 13 games a year, mostly pro, some college. And it's been a joy. It's really enjoyable to do. It's I guess you'd call it one of my little side hustles, but it's really only a weekend thing. And most of the time I'm staying within the region. So it's a simple day trip. So I'm not away from my family really overnight. But it's definitely a lot of fun to do because I'm able to talk to so many people behind the scenes in the press box and also the broadcast level, and really get to know a lot of these broadcasters who most of them are former players or, popular broadcasters. And say if I'm watching Red Zone on a Sunday, it's very entertaining because I'm like, I've worked with him, I worked with him, I worked with her, I worked with him, I worked with him. So it's very entertaining because I hear the voice and I know exactly who it is just by their voice. So they're really good at what they do, but we make them sound awesome. That's really what it is. It's about being awesome, right? Yeah. So, but no, it was just one little side thing that I picked up when I worked within the NFL, and I've enjoyed doing it, and it just kind of it just kind of fills my football fix. I love the sport. I love multiple sports.
You retain this stuff though, right? Like
a lot of it, yeah. And I mean, it takes time to get really effective.
I missed the NFL player's name, and I apologize, but it wasn't Tom Brady, and it wasn't the New England Patriots, and that's all my brain can have.
Well, we had Jordy Nelson here in November for the WSSCA Masters Conference.
Yeah,
and then we had Mark Tauser, who is a former Badger, Wisconsin Badger, and the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. So he ended up playing with both teams in the state, which makes him a very likable character. And he actually hosts a local radio show too, where he's highly effective at what he does, a great person. And, the fun part is to hear all these stories from, former players, and, they're just like you and me, except a lot of them were born with much better athletic abilities than us.
No, I came in late, so I didn't catch
but they're just great to listen to because you know what? They put a shoe on one at a time. They go to, this venue to eat. They enjoy sports as much as we do. So it's just a matter of trying to take advantage of those opportunities. And, with the statistician and spotting gig, it's just, I don't know, it's just something I've enjoyed doing. And, it's just something to do on the side where, hey, you know what? It's just fun to do.
Yeah. I came in right around the time. The reason why I brought it up was because I came in right around the time where I think somebody asked, do you remember your first sack that you let up or because you're an offensive lineman? And he said no as a joke. And I think, I think you just kind of blotted out who it was. And it
No,
was,
I didn't blot it out because we didn't know if we are gonna
oh,
give it as a prize or not. So we're
Yeah.
just trying to. They were just trying to feed off each other because it's it's just like we're just having a general conversation, talking about football, sports, life, a little bit of everything, and you just try to get that stuff across.
I might have a new person for my football picks, my weekly picks. My 4-year-old didn't do me very good this year.
The only downside is when I'm working a game, all your attention, and preparation is of that game.
Yeah.
So, if I'm working the game, it's tough to watch all the other games.
Yeah.
So you're really only seeing, two teams play and everything about what's happening in that game, but it's tough to follow everything else that's happening throughout the NFL. But in most press boxes, they have all the games on TV. So you try to catch bits and pieces and highlights as much as you can.
I was always fascinated, and I figured there was a lot of things in the background, and there's companies like SAS and Amazon and other companies that are putting out statistics and
there's a lot of companies that do a great job
out there. But when I heard a little bit about what you do and what you've done over the years, I literally just heard about today. I've known you for years, might have come up in conversation, but I never really caught it until today. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And like you say, it's like, these guys are good, but we make them look awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's just fantastic.
Well, and just being a fan, and
Yep.
I mean, you can't really watch it as a fan. I have to pay attention to every single play.
Yeah.
And know what's going on in order to help them out.
So, a guy like me with ADD, it's not in
Yeah.
the cards. Not in the cards. I'll stick to trying to figure out this live podcast stuff. So, well, I think that's going to do us for this week, Paul. Thanks for you didn't have any kid outbursts or anything fall. What's the weather
they
like?
did well. I've actually sent them home by now, so they're home. At the last half hour here, we were in the safe zone.
What's the weather doing?
It's just cold, getting dark here. That's why I had to turn my my stage lights on.
Yeah. Well, I'm just glad you got stage lights. That wasn't in the budget, by the way.
Yeah, wait till you get my bill.
Well, this is great. Thanks for making the time, Paul, on this outside of Friday at 2 p.m. We will get back on track this Friday too. We're hoping to have a great friend and a guest to talk about some professional development offerings and the importance of it in district with the custodial staff. So, John, appreciate you making the time, man. This has been fun. Feel like I'm sitting in a boardroom of a Fortune 100 company making some big life decisions here with John, and now we're gonna head back out and finish up the event. So, Paul, we will see you on Friday. 2 p.m. same bat channel. John, we'll go out and do this, and again, thank you all for listening, following, sharing, commenting, talking about how great the live's going. We're going to figure out the LinkedIn Live piece. But as always, if you like it and you love it and we're worthy of a 5-star review, please give us a 5-star rating and review on any of the platforms, and send me an email, Josh, Josh, at beawesome, beausm.com. Tell me that you did it. Has to be a rating and review. I'll send you a free t-shirt, tumbler, coffee mug, your choice. Whatever you don't have of our merchandise, we will send you one of, for giving us your time for doing that. And then just keep listening. Please, let us know how we're doing. If we're not up to your standards of a 5-star rating, please send an email to me at that address too, and let me know what we can do better, because this is all about you. We want to put together a great podcast and experience for you guys that you want to sit in on and join us every week. So that'll do it from the Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin Kalahari indoor water park capital of the world over here. So if you can be